Welcome to Haunted Talks, the official podcast of The Haunted Walk, offering ghost tours and paranormal adventures in Kingston, Ottawa, and Toronto, Ontario, and online experiences to anyone in this mortal realm. My name is Jim Dean. I am the creative director, and we really appreciate you joining us for today's episode. Back in November 2019, in episode 74 to be precise, we shared with you the story of the ghost ship of Niagara Falls. While not a traditional ghost story, it is a haunting tale that is full of drama and takes place on the threatening edge of one of the most awe-inspiring natural wonders in the world. More than that, it is the kind of secret hiding in plain sight that we at the Haunted Walk love. A physical artifact from a different time that has an incredible story to tell to those who will listen. Fast forward to April 2022, and there has been some major news about the ghost ship. In today's show, as it is such a great story and one of my personal favorites, we will share our original podcast from 2019. And then at the end, I will jump back in and share the latest update about this unusual landmark. But before we get to that, with the weather finally starting to feel like spring, if you live in Kingston, Ottawa, or Toronto, or plan to visit, I would like to invite you to join us on a ghost tour. There is no better way to get out of the house and enjoy some fresh air and get a little exercise than joining us on a paranormal adventure. Many of our tours have already relaunched for 2022, and we expect to announce several more in the coming weeks. Information about our ghost tours and our online experiences that can be done from anywhere in the world can be found on our website, hauntedwalk.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, all at Haunted Walk, for the latest news and updates. Two easy and helpful ways you can let us know you're out there and enjoying the show is to leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen, and to recommend Haunted Talks to friends, family, random strangers on the internet, or anyone you think would enjoy it. Standing before Niagara Falls, the size of the drop and the power of the water are undeniable. You can't help but imagine what it would be like to be heading towards the precipice without any chance of turning back. The first recorded person to survive the plunge was a schoolteacher named Annie Edson Taylor in 1901, who was a daredevil that went over the falls in a wooden barrel. Though many have not been nearly as lucky. Since 1850, there have been over 5,000 bodies recovered at the foot of the falls. Some daredevils, some accidents, and more than a few suicides. One of the longest standing witnesses to these tragedies was almost a victim to one itself. In 1911, a tugboat and a scow owned by the Great Lakes Dredge and Dock Company, which surprisingly is still in business today and traded on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange, was conducting dredging operations about 1.6 kilometers or about a mile or so upriver from the falls, when the cable connecting the two boats suddenly snapped, sending the scow and the two men aboard, Gustav Lofberg and James Harris, quickly downstream toward the Canadian side of the falls. The barge was 80 feet long and 30 feet wide, with doors in the bottom to dump its dredging load. The men opened the bottom doors in the hopes of slowing their drift downstream by flooding the compartment. Soon the men could hear the roar and see the mist rising from the massive Horseshoe Falls. Harris tied himself to the barge in fear of falling overboard into the rapids. Loftberg, a Swedish mariner, tied himself to a barrel and planned to jump off the barge as it approached the brig, very much like Annie Edson Taylor did in 1901. Luckily, as the scow moved its way through the rapids atop the falls, it entered shallow water and became lodged in some rocks. Only 600 meters, or less than half a mile, from the edge. The question now was how to get the two men safely off the boat and back onto shore. Due to the rapids and the proximity to the falls, using another boat to rescue the men was simply far too dangerous. The Niagara Falls Fire Department on the Canadian side were the first to arrive on the scene, and from the roof of a nearby power generating station attempted to fire a grappling hook to the boat to provide a line. It fell far short and plunged into the cold waters. A call was put out to the U.S. Coast Guard to bring a heavier grappling gun. They fired a small rope over to the men on the scow, who were able to retrieve it, and with the small line in place, a heavier rope was added and attached to the scow. By 2 a.m., a bosun's chair, which is a device used to suspend a person from a rope to perform work aloft, originally just a short plank or swath of heavy canvas, many modern bosun's chairs incorporate safety devices similar to those found in rock climbing harnesses, such as safety clips and additional lines. This chair was attached to the rope and slid outwards towards the stranded boat. Unfortunately, it got stuck halfway across when it tangled with the smaller attached rope. William Hill Sr., better known as Red, who was just back to his native Niagara Falls after being wounded as a Canadian soldier in the First World War, he was a renowned riverman and daredevil, and he would go on to save 28 people from drowning in the Niagara River before his death at the age of 54 in 1942. When the chair snagged, the 30-year-old Hill volunteered to shimmy out on the rope, going hand over hand to dislodge the chair. He hung above the raging rapids, some reports even saying by his feet and at times with one hand, for over 2 hours as he worked to clear the chair. Huge floodlights were brought in to illuminate the rescue scene, and thousands watched from the river bank. After 2 hours, and with no success, Hill reversed along the rope to the power plant roof and waited for daylight. At first light, Hill again shimmied out on the rope and was able to free the chair. He got close enough to the scow to shout directions to Harris and Loftberg on how to use it. Hill came back to the roof, and by 10 a.m., Harris, weak and terrified, was pulled across on the rope to safety. Loftberg soon followed. For his bravery, Hill was awarded a Carnegie Medal and was celebrated throughout Canada and the US as a hero. With the men safely back on land, the question became what to do with the scow. As it was trapped in the rocks, and any salvage operation being far too dangerous, the decision was made to simply leave it where it was. For over 100 years, this ghost ship has haunted the Niagara River, remaining stuck in place for generations of Canadians and visitors from around the world to come and see and hear the incredible story. It has survived violent waters and the ice of the river year after year like clockwork, and has provided this unique, tangible connection to the past. All of that changed on Halloween night 2019. If you live in Ontario or New York State, you know the weather that evening was particularly bad. Driving rain and at times gale-forced winds greeted the poor trick-or-treaters. And during that night, after 100 years of stillness, the iron scow moved approximately 50 meters or 150 feet closer to the precipice before once again getting hung up on the rocks. The poor thing, what's left of it, has spun around and tipped over, says Jim Hill, Superintendent of Heritage at Niagara Parks. It really isn't so much a boat anymore than it is a wall, he explained. It has been facing Canada, so we've had this great view of what looks like a relatively intact boat. But with the shift in position, that view is forever gone. Engineers from Niagara Parks believe the iron scow is in a relatively stable position for the time being, but its future is far from certain. As the metal continues to rust, and with the relentless battering of the water, many believe this recent movement is the beginning of the end for this historic wreck. At some point, it will either dislodge and go over the falls, or break into many small pieces and then make the drop. And if it does go over the falls, more or less intact, there is concern that it may become lodged behind the falls at the bottom, which would permanently hide it from view. And of course, this could happen any day now, or several years in the future. The end is coming. It is just a question of when. During the first week of April 2022, news came that the scow had moved once again. Each winter, an ice boom is installed at the mouth of the Niagara River at Fort Erie. The 2.7 kilometer or mile-and-a-half boom is made up of 22 floating steel pontoons that are anchored to the bottom of the river and connected by steel cables. The boom reduces the amount of ice entering the river and flowing over Niagara Falls. In so doing, it diminishes the probability of large-scale ice blockages in the river, which can cause flooding and ice damage to docks and shore structures along the river. In 1938, before the boom was used, the Honeymoon Bridge, at one time the largest steel arch bridge in the world, collapsed when a sudden windstorm on Lake Erie sent a massive amount of ice over the falls, resulting in nearly 100 feet of ice pushing against the bridge. This year, when the boom was removed, there were high winds in the area that pushed water and ice down the Niagara River from Lake Erie, pummeling into what was left of the landmark. It now appears that the boat has broken into 3 different parts. Jim Hill from Niagara Parks reports that a piece facing upstream has broken off, and the split in the hull has grown, with the downstream portion lower in the water and likely broken away. He doesn't believe that any larger pieces will go over the falls or pose a threat to public safety, as the heavy iron and steel used to construct the boat should keep them in place in the relatively shallow waters. Hill says the scow has lived through decades of being pounded by the river and storms and ice, so it's maybe just reaching the end of its life. He expects that the boat will continue to deteriorate, small piece by piece, over the coming years. Perhaps it is due to my love of ghost stories that I find something very poetic about this notion. That piece by piece, almost imperceptibly, the ghost ship of Niagara Falls is slowly vanishing before our eyes. That for over 100 years, it has survived in the most inhospitable conditions as a constant reminder, not only to the unbridled power and dangers of the water, but also as a testament to human courage and ingenuity. The ghost may disappear, but the story will never be forgotten. I would like to end this episode with my conclusion from 2019, which seems more fitting now than ever. If you do get the chance to visit the falls in the near future, be sure to look for the wreckage of the Iron Scow, the ghost that has haunted the top of the Horseshoe Falls for over a century, seemingly destined to vanish into history. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to follow us wherever you listen so you don't miss any new episodes. For information about our ghost tours in Kingston, Ottawa, and Toronto, and our online experiences, please visit our website, which is hauntedwalk.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, all at Haunted Walk, for the latest news and updates. As always, a special thanks to our Haunted Talks team, including Michelle Dennis, our outstanding audio editor, and Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.filmmusic.io for the additional music. Full credits can be found on our website. Until we meet again, sweet dreams.